Well, DC was publishing a title called Brave and Bold, which had been for years a Batman team-up title. It was considered by DC to be one of the Batman titles. There was a publisher a foreign publisher, I believe was South American, who was publishing the 4 Batman titles as a weekly Batman comic. So it's publishing Batman, Detective Comics, World's Finest, and Brave and Bold as a weekly Batman title, under the umbrella Batman title. So when Brave and Bold was canceled, DC was adamant that it had to be replaced by another Batman title. So I came up with the idea, maybe not just me, but came up with the idea of Batman being the leader of a team of superheroes. They liked that idea, and I went ahead and created the 3 new characters and brought in 2 older characters who I thought still had potential. And we pretty much took it from there. It was understood from the beginning that this would be Jim Apparo's book. He would be the artist on it because he, of course, was the artist on Brave and Bold when it was canceled. So it basically, we just took over, Batman and the Outsiders took Brave and Bold's place on the schedule without missing a beat. One month it was Brave and Bold 200, and the next month it was Batman and the Outsiders #1.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize they were so close together.
Yeah, 1 month, they were 1 month apart, yeah. And there was even a preview in Brave and Bold 200 of Batman and the Outsiders. And so and it went on for about, I don't know, 5 years or so from there. And sporadically reappears.
Yeah, that's a great title.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. I hope I'm always ready to go back to it, but DC seems to want other people doing it. Why, I don't know.
Well, they probably ruined them anyway with the new 52.
Well, they probably, yeah. I'm not saying you're wrong. Anybody else?
Do you have a favorite title that you never got a chance to write? A favorite character that you never chanced?
I've always liked DC. I always wanted to write the character Dr. 13, the Ghost Breaker, but I never got a chance to write him. I've been pretty lucky that most of the characters I've wanted to write I have in one way or another. I always wanted to do more with Dr. Fate because I always loved Dr. Fate, but and I got to write him once or twice. So that was the DC, the Julie Schwartz superheroes of the '60s, like Adam Strange and characters like that. I always like to write, but we'll see if that ever happens again.
What are you working on nowadays?
Nowadays, I'm trying to sell some stuff, some proposals that I can't talk about. I am working on a proposal for something that, again, I can't talk about. Sorry, but if it works out, you'll hear about it. I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. They have a certain number of favorite writers and artists at the office, and I'm not one of them. So it's a little difficult to stay gainfully employed.
Right.
But we'll see.
What was the last project you came out with?
Last project I came out with? You mean the last thing I created? Wow, I don't know. It's been a long time. Probably something in the Ultraverse, I guess. The Malibu Ultraverse back in it's been 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We started that in 1992, and that lasted about 2 years, and then, it came out in 1993. We started organizing it in 92, it came out in 93, lasted about 2 years. So I guess it would have been the title mantra for the Malibu Ultraverse. After that, everything kind of went south.
Yeah. What about Camelot 3000? What was it? That was yours too, right?
Yes, I wrote that. Yeah, I created and wrote it, and we brought in, of course, Brian Ballin as the artist, who designed all the characters. And Brian, of course, is always a joy to work with because he's so creative and his stuff is so gorgeous.
Yeah, that was a fun.
And Brian, I think, had fun working on those characters too. He especially liked Merlin. For reasons I don't quite understand, because Brian is just a little off. He's a great artist, he's a good guy, and what makes him a great artist probably is the fact that his psyche is just very slightly skewed. So he liked Merlin. His early versions of Merlin, which we didn't go with, had Merlin holding a rubber chicken, and we sort of said, no, we're not gonna go that wacky with him, but we went more aloof than comedy. Which is the best way to go with it.
It's a great series.
Oh, thank you.
Enjoyed that very much.
Thank you. Anybody else?
You worked on some of the Star Trek comics also.
Yeah, I wrote some of the 2 or 3 of the issues of Marvel back when they spun off of Star Trek the Motion Picture back in the 1980s, and wrote I think the first 16, I believe, and 2 annuals at DC. When they got the license back in, when they got the license in 1983, I believe, 83 or 84.
They got the better deal
that's
because
after
Marvel's run could only use characters from the motion picture,
Yes.
right? Their
That
contract.
was true, at least in the beginning. I'm not sure if that applied to the entire series,
Oh.
but that at least applied in the beginning, and that's what I was told.
Yeah.
And fortunately, it worked out okay because you pretty much had everything you needed in Star Trek the Motion Picture to do Star Trek comics. You had all the main characters, you had the ship, you had Klingons. I don't know if they ever used Klingons in the original Marvel series or not.
I can't
I think
remember.
there was a few in a couple stories. Not a lot, though.
But that was the original case. Yeah, but fortunately we got past that. Although nothing did much good because Marvel, it lasted about, I think, 18 issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't do very long.
Yeah, the DC
was far superior.
Yeah, it was much better.
And then the DC, yeah, well, Marvel in those days didn't so much care about doing the Star Trek comic as long as it was a comic that had Star Trek on the cover. And that's pretty much what they cared about.
Yeah.
As I've said somewhere, as I said earlier today, there was an issue of Marvel's Star Trek comic, not one of mine, that I saw the title of the art for it in the office, and it was called Tomorrow Is Yesterday. And I don't know and I pointed out to them because I don't think they were aware that that was actually the title of one of the original episodes, and so they sort of thanked me and then changed it.
They didn't do much research about it, I guess.
I'm sorry?
They didn't do enough research about it to find out.
Yeah, I guess not. I guess not. But I guess it worked out okay for 18 months or so. But I think the fans are sort of aware sometimes that the company's not necessarily taking the right angle because they'll just stop buying it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what they did here.
Yeah, that wasn't the case with DC. I was actually surprised when they canceled the title. That was a licensing issue I think they had.
It was what?
A licensing problem I think that they had. That's why they.
That may be. I don't know anything about that. I know they canceled it once, then started over with another number one, and then they got the Next Generation and stuff like that. They did not have Deep Space Nine because Malibu had that.
Yeah, exactly.
They did one crossover.
Yeah.
That was about it.
Oh, yes, you're right.
That was the extent of DC's DS9.
Yeah. Yeah, we did a four issue series on that.
Yep.
But that was a great deal of fun to do too, because the characters were designed, of course, obviously to occupy the same universe, so it was pretty easy to fit them all together.
Combine them, yeah.
All we had to do was come up with a story for it, which we were able to do.
Yeah, that's something they never did in the movies. They're doing now in the books. That's what they're doing. They're combining all the universes, which is actually kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. You mean the paperbacks?
Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah, now it's just Star Trek, and it's anything that has to do with that 24th century is together.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So they have it's all got common stories. The only one that has a separate story is Voyager, because it's set again in the the Delta Quadrant.
Right. Oh.
So that's why.
I see. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. You wrote the Mirror saga,
Evolving
right?
the characters, though. So
I'm sorry?
They're still evolving the characters,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah, it's actually
Yeah.
very good what they've done with the novels. I mean, because
Yeah.
it's got its own continuity and it's really good. It's really kept the story of that universe alive, and it's actually very well done.
Yeah, we did do the sequel to the Mirror Universe story, which worked out pretty well.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a great one. Yeah.
And we got a lot of good response from that, and it was fun to do.
I think it's still the best Mirror Universe follow-up I've seen.
Yeah, there've been a fair amount of them. They did one. There's a web series called Star Trek Continues,
Yes.
Yeah.
which they did a sequel
Yeah,
to the
I haven't
Mirror
watched
Universe
that
story,
one
which is really interesting because to see the labor that these guys have gone to is just incredible. I mean, they built the sets and it looks exactly like the television show.
Yeah.
The music, the effects are all exactly the same. And I mean, if you didn't know better, you would think it was maybe an episode of the original show.
Mm-hmm.
If you showed it to someone who didn't know the show very well, they might think it is.
Even the guy who plays Kirk, I mean, if you didn't see his face, his movements, he's got Shatner down to a T.
Oh, see, I didn't think he was doing Shatner that well. I just thought that what I liked about the characters is that they're able to basically put their own interpretations of these familiar characters, which I find interesting. But and that's how I felt about the guy who does Kirk. I don't think he's doing Shatner, but maybe he is.
Yeah, well, but they've captured that magic of the original show. You watch that and you really feel that it's Star Trek. I mean, you can't tell. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really a labor of love, and
And some good guest stars in it too.
yes, mhm.
Erin Gray was in one.
Yeah,
That was cool.
yeah, and they have obviously it's kind of funny because Paramount is obviously kind of looking the other way.
Yeah.
You know,
Well-
they could come down on these guys like a ton of bricks, but they don't.
They don't care because these people aren't making money on it.
Right.
So as long as they don't make money on it,
They don't care.
Paramount doesn't care.
Right. Well, I guess that's well. Paramount still, so you would think that they
You
would
would
care
think.
because
Yeah.
it's still a copyright violation.
Right.
But I think Paramount realizes that basically if they were to come down on these fans, they would look like bullies.
Yeah.
Which even though that they would have the right to do so legally, they don't want to do that.
It's a bad PR.
Because they realize exactly, yeah, they realize how important Star Trek's fan following is to the continuation of Star Trek. So they don't come down on these guys. Even though you probably know that there's some executive up there in Paramount kind of gnashing his teeth saying,
Why didn't we do that first?
why don't we follow these guys? You know? Let's just tumble over on these guys. Let's just roll over on these guys and crush them. You know? Because they're building the sets on their own. They're producing it with their own money, I'm sure. And maybe even contributions. I have no idea how they're financing the thing.
Some of them actually, some of them ask for contributions, but they never make any profit on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, Phase 2 asked for contributions.
Phase 2.
Yeah.
They had some wacky stories in that one.
Yeah, they've had all sorts of stories there. Yeah.
What's amazing, I mean, that shows you how important Star Trek is to these people. They just won't see it. They just won't let it go, which I understand.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What was your first professionally sold comic story?
Comic story was a story I sold to DC editor Julie Schwartz. It was an Elongated Man story. He was one of the DC venue of superheroes in those days, which was published in Detective Comics in, I think, 1974. So it's been a long time.
Elongated Man, he was a cool character.
Yeah, and they've since, I don't know, somehow killed him hideously.
Yeah. I haven't seen him in the New 52 yet. As far as I
No,
know.
well, they, I don't know if the story that they killed him is in the New 52 or not.
No, it was before.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, it was in the series 52.
I thought it was in Infinite Crisis, Identity Crisis. I thought.
I'm trying to think when he was.
Yeah, that one I don't know.
can't remember now.
Yeah. and if I think about it too much, it just gives me a headache.
Yeah.
Because I really like that character, and he was so sort of inoffensive, and what was done to him was just really sort of over the top violent.
Well, they're changing everything again, apparently.
I guess, yeah, that's what they do at DC. I guess when things get untenable, they just say do over, and there you go.
Yeah, I was so disappointed with the New 52.
Oh, are you?
I used to collect almost everything from DC.
Mm-hmm.
I think I collect maybe 5 titles now.
Hmm.
It's just changed the characters too drastically. It's not the same characters anymore.
Well, that's true. Sometimes, yeah, you can't go too far with that.
Like after the first Crisis, they kind of rebooted, but the characters essentially were the same characters. I mean, personality-wise, Green Arrow was still the same Green Arrow. Now, New 52, he's totally different. Not even close to being the same character, so it was like total turnoff. Teen Titans, terrible.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it just wasn't. It's not the Teen Titans anymore. They totally wiped out all of Marv Wolfman's run.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't. None of that happened.
Oh, that's too bad.
They didn't gather that way.
Mm-hmm.
The Outsiders were gone. All
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I don't know the status of the Outsiders in the DC universe now. If there is a DC universe even. I assume there is. But I don't know what the status of the Outsiders.
Halo's not around. Katana's still around.
Yeah, Katana's around.
But not Halo that I know of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Or
don't know.
Geoforce, for that matter. Neither one, as far as I know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all very difficult. I don't quite, and they haven't, to my knowledge, come out with sort of a guidebook as to what's what. So
True.
you don't really know. So if you're an old DC fan, you don't know what's part of the universe now and not.
Yeah.
Well, and they're changing it again.
It's almost-
Anyway,
it's
so
almost-
like it wouldn't even matter. Yeah.
It would have been neat
If you're
if,
changing it again anyway, so it doesn't almost even matter.
Well, it could be, yeah.
I always thought it would have been neat if they maybe did something, you know, everyone would say they're just copying Marvel, but you know how they did the Ultimate line? They could have split it up like that for the old time fans, could have still
Mhm.
continued the old universe in an Ultimate version. You know what I
Well,
mean?
that's true, yeah.
To appease
Yeah.
us old timers.
Yeah, I don't know why they, yeah, I don't know anything about the editorial decisions up there nowadays.
Yeah, they're not so good.
So, what do you prefer to write for? Superheroes or something like Star Trek?
Well, I like both of them, basically. I like any kind of sort of adventure-oriented sequential literature. I mean, series stories. I like taking characters that have been around for a long time and then doing something, doing something new with them, or showing some aspect of their character maybe you hadn't seen before, but still remains consistent with the old. That was so much fun about Star Trek all those years. Now I don't know what can be done with that.
They have a whole new comic book line based on the new universe that Abrams created. So it's a
Mhm.
different comic, yeah.
Yeah, I guess IDW's comics are
Yeah.
set in that universe.
That's some interesting stories, some so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have the same guys are involved in the movies on the
Right.
comics, yeah.
Right.
You've never written for a TV?
No, I have not.
Nothing.
No. I haven't, really, I had what they call a pitch meeting years ago when I lived in California with Star Trek Voyager, but nothing came of it. They didn't like the story I brought in, so they were very courteous.
Yeah.
They were very nice, but I just never, they just basically didn't do what I wanted to do.
Oh, so you wrote a story for the show?
Well, no, well, I submitted a story for the show.
Okay.
I pitched a story for the show, but they didn't, it didn't take. It didn't stick to the wall, as they say. And I forget what year the series was in, but the series went on for a long time beyond that. I guess what they all went 7 years, except for
7 years
the
for
original
Enterprise.
series. Yeah.
Enterprise.
An Enterprise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did Enterprise go 7 years also?
It was 4.
5.
Was it four?
4, yeah.
4 or 5?
4.
I think it was 5.
No, it was 4.
Was it 4?
4, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
The 4th season is when it got good.
Yeah, I
And
know.
that's when they canceled
Yeah,
it.
they had a mirror universe.
Yeah, they had
episode.
2 episodes
Yes.
of the Mirror Universe as well, which were
Which
well
was
written,
interesting.
yeah.
Mhm. Yes, those were good episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Mirror Universe is always fascinating to visit. I mean, they had it on DS9 also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah.
There are multiple episodes on DS9.
DS9 was a
yeah.
fun show. That's
Oh, that's right. They did. Yeah, they did do that on DS9.
Yeah. Where there's no more Federation.
Yeah.
yeah.
Or Terran Empire, as it should be.
Was that the only? What was the novel you wrote?
I wrote this Star Trek novel called Gemini.
Was that
Which
the
was
only-
out in-
the only
that-
one you've written?
Well, I also wrote part of a Star Trek novel called Mere Insanity. I think it was Mere Insanity. I think I wrote it was a very ambitious project that dealt with basically all aspects of Star Trek, all incarnations of the original Star Trek. So there was the TV show, and there was the movie, and there was like the movies beyond that. So I wrote the TV sort of version of that, the TV section of that show, which was a lot of fun. That was just after I wrote the novel Gemini. So I was able to work on that. Pardon me. And that was a great deal of fun.
Can you say anything about that story that you wrote that never got filmed for
I don't remember much about it now. Actually, I might have reworked it. I probably took the elements of it and reworked it and maybe into another Star Trek story. Because that's what writers do, you know.
Yeah.
Something if they have a good idea, they'll use it somewhere, whether somebody else thinks it's a good idea or not.
You didn't use it in Gemini?
I don't think. Well, as a matter of fact, I think I did. I think I used the idea of the there were two brothers in Gemini who were conjoined twins, but they were joined at the spine. So they had never seen each other face to face, and they had to learn how to accommodate that way, which was a really interesting challenge.
You have to walk sideways all the time.
Well, they had to walk. Well, they weren't side. They weren't. Not, well, no, they were conjoined at the spine.
Okay.
So that you had to walk backwards, or one always had to walk backwards, one always had to walk forward.
Was that set in the original series?
Yeah, that was an original series novel, which is always my favorite. Which is always my default Star Trek anyway.
Yeah.
The TV show.
You have a favorite episode?
Favorite episode. I don't know if I have one single favorite episode. I have a number of episodes that sort of changes from time to time depending on my viewpoint at that time. And the series, of course, is still around. It's on.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where it's locally, but it's on the I guess the MeTV network.
MeTV, yeah.
Across the country, I guess, and maybe other places too. Although I don't know if any, and I think Star Trek: The Next Generation is still being broadcast. I don't know if DS9 is anywhere,
Yeah, I don't think
I
so.
don't think it's been no.
or Voyager, or Enterprise.
The Next Generation's on BBC, I think.
Yes, I believe it
Watch
is.
that every now and then.
What do you think of the updated special effects that they did for the original show?
The what show?
Star Trek, for the original show, they did that updated version that they did with all the news.
Oh, I like the I like the effects. Fine, I like the
Remastered.
casting. I've always said for years that they should recast. Meaning no disrespect to the original cast, but they were just getting too old to continue to do it. I just don't care for the stories. I don't think the stories are very sort of action oriented, which is fine, but they're not action oriented in a way that's not appropriate for Star Trek.
Exactly.
I agree.
Yeah, we have to see.
But they've done, but J.J. Abrams has done real well with them so far. Paramount, I understand, has they're making another movie for the 50th anniversary of the series.
Yes.
So
Well,
I guess another couple. Well, next year we'll be seeing that then.
It seems like he did a lot of things just to do them, and not for any reason.
Well,
That's
yeah.
what I didn't like about.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
well, hopefully this next movie is all original story and not a rehash.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Yeah, Into Darkness was terrible.
My concern is the director that they have now, because they changed directors and they have somebody who's, what was it, Fast and the Furious that he made or something like that?
One of those,
Sure.
some action.
Yeah, some
franchise.
action film, yeah, so he's the director now, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I guess we'll wait. I guess we'll find out next year
Yeah.
what's going on. Hey, how you doing?
Oh, hi.
We're just having a conversation.
So this is basically all of us that are ours.
So you ask whatever you want.
Oh, I think now you put me on the spot. Well, actually, I was kind of blown away. For some reason, I didn't think that Barr Bennett would have been the direct person you had to answer to in those days, even though he was doing the movies. It kind of blew me away when he told me that he actually communicated, because as I said, I bought that comic, and you guys never mentioned it in the letter column or anything like that. You got.
Maybe there wasn't. Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if I wrote some of those letter columns, not all of them. But yeah, Herb Bennett was the guy. He was basically the Star Trek. He was the controller of all things Star Trek at Paramount. So basically, anything you wanted to do with Star Trek, maybe Bennett didn't handle it himself, but he basically would either handle it himself or assign it to someone who did.
Actually, that's the only letter I think I ever mailed to a comic, and you guys published it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was somewhere in the Mirror Saga. I was commenting on an episode. I was commenting on the Savick story, and you published it, and I thought, oh my god. And I'm like George R. R. Martin. George R. R. Martin has a letter that he published in Fantastic Four way back.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, they put it on pictures. If you find it, he only used one R at the time. That was the interesting thing. But it was. Oh no, he was big in comic fandom. That's why he came up with Wild Cards.
Oh. Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Well, I'm just curious, what was the reason for coming up with The Outsiders, or at least coming up with the title?
Well, we talked about that a little. Basically,
I'm
DC
sorry.
needed another title to replace a Batman title that had been canceled. And so that basically turned out to be The Outsiders.
Why
The
did
Batman and the Outsiders. And then later on, of course, they were spun off into their own title.
Was that to replace Brave and the Bold?
Yes.
Were the sales down that they canceled, or they just want
Yeah,
to
the
do
sales
something
on Brave and Bold had sunk pretty low.
Darn. I always like those team-ups.
Well, you know, it's funny because after the book, it was announced the book would be canceled, we got a lot of mail from irate fans saying, I'm not going to buy this new book because I really like Brave and Bold. And it's not like we canceled Brave and Bold out of pique, it just wasn't selling. So it would have been canceled no matter what.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, the thing is that I think around the same time they decided to wrap up Marvel Team Up and just do Web of Spider-Man, and they ended at issue 100, and then I always remembered issue 100. It's kind of funny because it's Spider-Man and the X-Men, and in the corner at that time in the corner Marvel insignia, Spidey says, "I'm dead, Jim," you know, because they were
Oh,
ending.
did he?
What?
Oh, did he? I'd forgotten that.
No, I just remember because they were the thing that I didn't know if Brave and the Bold until now. I didn't know if Brave and the Bold ended the same way, just because they wanted to do something new, and they ended Marvel Team Up and just did Web of Spider-Man. So Spidey had his third book of new stuff.
Huh.
Surprising about Brave and the Bold is the last like 10 or so issues, they had really good stories in it, from what I remember.
Yeah, that's true.
There's some that really
That's often
stood
the
out.
case. That for some
Yeah.
reason, when a book is dying, its last few issues will be really good. And sometimes more people will start buying it in an attempt to keep the title alive, but that's not what happened with Brave and Bold. It just died anyway.
Yeah.
So another question: when you were doing the Star Trek motion picture adaptation, which script did you get to look at? I mean,
Well, that wasn't. I didn't write that one.
Oh, okay.
I wrote the adaptations of Star Trek 3 and 4.
Oh, okay. I thought you.
Marv Wolfman wrote the adaptation of Star Trek the motion picture.
Oh, that's why. I think didn't. Yeah, wasn't he going to do something on the DC and then he got called off, or he had to, or was Titans going off at that time, or something?
I don't think Marv ever intended. Well, actually, I can tell you for sure. Marv never intended to write the Star Trek title at DC.
Okay.
He just intended to edit it,
Oh, okay.
and did very well.
Wow. At the same time, he was doing Titans. Cool.
Yeah, well, it's not. I don't. Without speaking at all derisively about the work an editor does, editing a comic and writing a comic are basically two different levels of involvement.
Okay.
So it was Marv liked the idea of being sort of able to sort of directly the future of the Star Trek characters without actually having to be the writer, because he trusted me and I guess later the other writers he brought in to do it.
So how far ahead did you get the scripts for those two movies that you adapted into comics?
What was far enough ahead that we were able to bring them out on time. So that's really much all I can say. They weren't, by that time there were not that many. Well, I guess one of the problems that Paramount had with Star Trek: The Motion Picture was it went through a lot of revisions. There was a lot of last minute changes, last minute special effects, things of that nature, and they basically wanted to do away with that. They wanted to bring them out pretty much on schedule. And so we didn't have any problem with that. We got the scripts well ahead of the release date of the movie, and were able to bring the adaptation out about the same time.
Yeah, there's always some small differences between the adaptations and
Oh,
because
sure.
of the script changes that happen.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting, is to
Yeah.
look for those and to find out why they were made, or speculate why they were made. But what we got for the scripts of Star Trek 3 and 4 were pretty much what you saw on the
Yeah,
screen.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
There may have been a scene or two that may have been different just because they changed that or they got
Possibly,
rid of it,
yeah.
or yeah.
And there may be some scenes in those adaptations that were not in the actual, that were cut from the actual film. That's always interesting.
Well, also I remember you guys had to explain, because I think some people wrote letters. I read a letter column, and some people complained, how come this person looked like this? And you had to explain that you only had the script. You didn't see any footage, so you were were working off the raw script, so you didn't know who was casted as what, at least for the minor characters.
Yeah, we were able to get a fair amount of still photographs that had been taken on the set, which were very useful for certain story situations and certain props and things of that nature. But there was some, but there are always some variations there, which is interesting. It's kind of the fun of looking at a comic book adaptation of a film.
Well, actually,
Different.
I should ask you, what was the, how did it come about that you guys got to do Son of the Demon? You know, it came out as a hardcover, which was a big deal in those days. I think it was still rare in the 80s, and it was a big deal. Oh my God, they're doing a hardcover comic. I mean, was there any, special reason why they just wanted to do Son of the Demon? And
I guess they thought it was a good enough story that it would merit hardcover publication. I didn't have anything to do with it. They didn't tell me it was going to be in hardcover until somebody at the office told me, "Oh yeah, we're doing this as a hardcover." So I was not given any input into the decision. They just decided to do it, which it was fine with me.
so it was still, actually, I have it right here. Is it still just a regular page comic, or was it?
Well, no, it was done as a graphic novel.
Oh, okay.
But they just decided to. We thought it would be a softcover graphic novel, like every other graphic novel was in those days. But they decided to do it as a hardcover.
And did you have complete freedom, or did Denny want you to go into certain areas, particularly since it was his,
Well, Denny didn't have anything to do with the graphic novel.
Oh,
That was
really?
edited by Dick Giordano,
Oh, okay.
who was editing the Batman books at the time.
Oh, okay.
So and everything about the book was discussed with Dick in great detail.
So are you now credited with the creation of Damien?
Well, not as far as DC's concerned. No. Everybody else thinks yeah, it was me and Jerry Bingham who created that character, but DC says no, it wasn't you. And that'll probably never change. So what can you do?
Actually, was that a big deal? Because I think that was the first time on camera that you ever saw Bruce, be intimate with a woman. Was there any big deal about that? Did anybody say anything, or was it just
Well, not at the time, because we covered it by explaining that they had been married.
Oh yeah,
But later on, we get a lot of flack from it.
Yeah, I always remember that country where Rush goes that all you need is the woman's approval to be married.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so
I never thought about that.
boom, there you go. But later on, of course, they gave us a lot of flack about like we were trying to sneak something past, even though everybody at DC who wanted to find out about it could have simply by asking Dick Giordano. And then of course that reflects back on the state of what was it, Superman Returns, where he had a child out of wedlock with Lois Lane. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking, well, this is even worse than Batman. This is Superman. This is the paragon of virtue, having a child out of wedlock. So how can we get all this flack for Batman, in a situation in which he was actually married? But that'll never be resolved to my satisfaction, I'm sure. But you learn. But as James C. Kirk once said, there are a million things you can have in the universe and a million things you can't. And wisdom lies in being able to choose which is which. So does anybody else have any questions? We're not close to exhausting our time yet, but if we have but there's no sense in the kind of wasting this expensive videotape if we
Well, actually, there is one more question. I guess it's about the Trek book. So, was there any reason why you waited to bring Arix and Merez until after the fourth movie, or was that during your tenure, or?
Well, it wasn't after the fourth movie. They were in there from the pretty much. Arix and Merez. Yeah, I don't think I had anything to do with that. I think that was after I was on the.
That was Peter David.
That was Peter David.
Oh, okay. I thought. Well, the thing is, you said you adapted 4, so I thought you were still around for 4. I thought Peter came later.
Well, no, I was still around for 4, but I wrote the Star Trek book through issue 16.
Okay.
And then, I guess it was Peter David who brought those characters back, or into the comic book anyway.
I was just reading those a couple weeks ago, so.
Yeah,
Why it stuck in my head.
we did create some characters for that book simply so we could have some characters that we could play around with, that we could advance and change without having to get Paramount's okay on it.
Bear Claw.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean-
He was an interesting character.
Well, you
Yeah,
guys,
he was.
well, you guys were lucky because when they canceled the book and then they brought it back again, unfortunately at this time, next gen. I mean, did you ever? I'm gonna mention a name which probably bring terrors. Or did you ever have to deal with Richard Arnold?
No, I never did. I don't. To my knowledge, I never did.
Okay.
So I don't know. I've heard a lot of bad things about him, but I never had to deal with him. So I don't know what he was actually like.
Okay. No, I've heard only stuff from Peter David and a few of the other
Mhm.
writers, and the thing is, it seemed like in your time, you know, you had free reign. You know, you could do whatever you want, or at least bring whatever you want. Character was now. Is it? I heard from Dave Gibbons that originally you guys wanted him for the book, but you know he wanted to get away from licensed products since he did Doctor Who for 2 years. Was there any truth to that, or?
You know, there may be. I don't remember after all this time.
Okay.
I remember that we wanted. I think I had suggested. Somebody had suggested Tom Sutton for the title. We were told he was unavailable, and then all of a sudden, a little ways later, he did become available.
Yeah.
So it's entirely possible that Dave passed on it because he didn't want to do licensed characters anymore. I don't know.
Okay.
Dave would have been a great choice for the book. Dave is pretty much a great choice for everything.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I did. I'll be honest. I like Tom Sutton, although there was a weird thing that the bridge never looked right. I don't know why. At least for me, you know, it always seemed a little bit off. Like the layout is. I don't know if it was because he didn't have good stills or, but the likenesses were perfect. You know, under Tom Sutton.
Well, we had a lot of reference, so I'm sure we had bridge reference too. Whether it took or not, I don't know. It always seemed to look. It always looked okay to me, but you know, who knows?
But the story was more important at that point.
Well, yeah. Yeah, and as long as you had something that reasonably looked like the Enterprise, that was okay.
Yeah.
And it was okay with Paramount too, I guess, because they okayed all that stuff.